Hey guys, so this is a bit of an update on some of the future stuff I'm going to be up to, and this is kind of under the broad heading of exercising the aging brain so that we stave off any effects of age and also have interesting stuff to do. So there's kind of four headings here. The first one is really learning how to design and make PCBs, and so I got this really cool book on KiCad Like a Pro from an outfit called Tech Explorations, and they have an online course that goes with the book, which is about 15 hours of exercises or study on online, and I found that really excellent. And so the application for much of this stuff here right now, I'm thinking, is going to be to make a version 2 of the audio selector device that I built a while back based on that excellent design by Les Carpenter. And so if you remember that one, it was all done with wiring on standard Vero board. And so I think making a nice version of it that is, let's say, all done with proper PCBs and interconnects would be a nice thing to do. The other thing is that version uses a sort of custom controller, and I thought it'd be nice to do it with an Arduino microcontroller, so it could be more, how can I put it, like open source, and we could make it more modular. So for instance, you could select how many input channels you wanted, how many output channels you wanted, and how many record channels, and so on, and whether you wanted a VU meter or not, and whether you wanted volume control or not, etc. So that's the PCB stuff. Another course I did online was called on udemy.com, was called Mastering Microcontroller Programming. That one didn't really work for me because it kind of said you didn't need to know anything about C programming. But as it went through, I had no problem with the hardware stuff and the concepts and everything else, but I did have problem with the software side of things. So I thought, I need to go and learn C programming language, particularly as it pertains to Arduino, and then come back and have another go at that one. So by pure coincidence, Elector sent a little email out about an offer they had with a book called C Programming with Arduino, which would come with a free Arduino thrown in. So I ordered that up. I've had a quick look at it. It looks like the type of book that's going to work for me, so that's really cool. On the KiCad side, one of the things I did just as a sort of little test of dip my toe in the water is I took a little small part of the circuit out of the audio source selector, which is the motorized volume control. And I just took that part of the circuit and converted it into a KiCad. Sorry, I'm disorganized here. Into a KiCad circuit diagram, and then created basically a PCB layout and everything. And the sort of 3D version of it looks a little bit like that. So that was just really just an exercise to a practical application of what I was learning with the KiCad book. And like all this stuff, new skills only stay if you continue to use them. So that's that bit, and that's the C programming book. So this one literally just arrived today, so I will be. But as I say, I've had a quick peruse of it, and it looks good for what I'm going to be doing. And on the hardware side, so obviously I need an Arduino. So here's a basic Arduino, and it has a little daughter board on the top, which in Arduino speak is called a shield. And all this one does is it takes the microcontroller socket and move it up off the Arduino board onto this little shield with a crystal and a couple of caps, and then you have the ability to easily take the microcontroller in and out without having to worry about it, either damaging the legs of the chip and the socket. Because as I get into doing code for the selector box, I'm sure I'll be having to do it over and over many times, and there will be considerable amounts of debugging involved, I'm sure. So that's piece of hardware number one. Piece of hardware number two I got, which is a a little device which has a single function, and all this does is it will write a bootloader on one of these microcontrollers. So you can buy these microcontroller chips with the bootloader already loaded on there, which is the normal way, or you can get them without the bootloader. And so I just got this as a little safety precaution, because if I brick one of these controllers, at least all I have to do here is pop the controller in here, give it some power, and hit the button, and it will just literally write the bootloader on there, and that's all it does. So that's that. For programming, there's two ways of writing code, as I've discovered. There's basically two ways of writing code for these things. You can use the Arduino, dedicated Arduino way, using their software, where you can program it via the USB, or the third-party controllers generally use the ICSP port, which is the 6-pin thing right here, and program in the C programming language, which is why I'm getting into all this C stuff. And so I decided I would go that route. And so to do that, you need an external programmer, because the non-Arduino programmers, if you like, program via this ICSP port here. And so that's what this little guy does. This is a combined programmer and debugger called Yatmel Ice. So it's made by the same company that make the microcontroller chip. And so this will let me program. So this little thing goes in here onto the ICSP port, and the other end goes into your laptop. And you can program, and you can also debug. And then it will do multiple different types of microcontroller, not just the Atmega 328. So that's all that. So that's stuff to be doing. I got some other bits and pieces. This is another third party. This is I think I've shown this already before. This is a TTL to a USB to TTL interface, which again would let you connect up and program by the ICSP port. So that's that. So that's the Arduino bit covered, and the C programming covered, and the PCB design covered. And the last bit under the heading of new skills, I guess, is going to be the SMD soldering. So I've got a couple of these test your skills board or practice boards. Yeah, to be honest, some of this I think I'll be able to make a reasonable go at, but there's some of this stuff that I don't know, they are so tiny, I'm not sure I'd ever be able to even do it properly, but we will give it a go. And the benefit of some of these, this one for instance has LEDs and everything, and you give it a 5 volts and it'll light up the LEDs, so at least you can see whether or not your efforts were successful. This one I'm not sure. I think it's just a load of pads and you can just practice. So I got a couple of those, and there's another one I ordered up which hasn't arrived yet, which also has LEDs and so on, so you can see if your work has been successful. I'm also experimenting with things like flux for SMD, and so this is a type of rosin that you dilute in alcohol, and it will make a nice, apparently make a pretty good flux. So I'm gonna try that, and I'm also gonna obviously get the conventional flux paste stuff as well. So that's pretty much it. I think the only other thing that I'll need then, or I might explore, is getting solder paste and do the hot oven flow process, but that's going to be way down the road. So that's that. Another little gadget I decided to add to the arsenal is this guy. Having seen Curious Mark and the guys working on that wonderful Apollo guidance computer project, I decided I'd plop for one of these Analog Discovery 2 gadgets. Plus I have ordered up a microscope for the SMD stuff, because I know I'm not going to be able to do this unaided. So that's all sort of in the more sort of modern stuff. I also have a vintage radio project upcoming, and that will be redoing the glass dial on my original Pi P53. I've just seen on YouTube about some new technology which has come out on the whole stencil area, where you can do a stencil and leave no film. In other words, when you're finished, the stencil is not there anymore, it's just the ink. and it works on laser printers, so the ink is going to be much more opaque. My original project I did with a DeskJet printer, and it's sort of translucent. The color is not opaque, and so you can see through the dial where you shouldn't be able to see through the dial. It doesn't look, it's perfectly usable as a radio, but it just doesn't look nice, doesn't look right. So we're going to give that a shot and see if that works as well. So that's also upcoming. I think that's about it for now, guys. So again, because this is all going to take a while, I really don't know when I'll be uploading stuff about this, but anytime I get to a point where I think we have something interesting to report, I'll put together a bit of a clip and let you know how it's going. So that's it for now. So I would say probably watch out for the vintage radio one. That'll probably come first, if I'm honest, because once that decal paper arrives for the laser printer, we will get stuck into that and give that a go. More to come. Cheers for now. Bye.